Now, what we're going to do is really just relax and listen, not only to what is being said, but equally important, that is what your own mind is saying to you as you hear these things that we're going to cover. I'm going to be saying certain things, obviously. And these facts, these statements, are going to fall on your minds, and fall on everybody's mind in a different way, because we're all conditioned differently. In order to get the maximum amount of value out of what we're going to cover tonight, we have to do something which is both the most valuable and the most difficult thing to do at the same time, which is to get ourselves out of our own way. And if you think that's easy, we have collected throughout the years all these ideas about ourselves. And from these ideas about ourselves, we have ideas of how the world should treat us, what we should attain in life, what we need in order to be happy. And these get very hardened inside of us. And this becomes our self, our I, me. And when this collection of ideas we have about ourselves are attacked or frustrated by the exterior world, by another person in our life, by society as a whole, we get disturbed. We get disturbed because we fear that this identified self that we have, which is made up of hundreds of ideas, hundreds of pictures, we're afraid of its extinction at the hands of this external event or this other person. Now this is very practical. This is not philosophy. There's nothing more practical than what we're going to cover tonight, because this is the way out of all disturbance, which we'll come to in a moment. If I can begin to watch my mind react, which you should be doing now, as well as listening to me, and begin to detect a disturbance, a wish that it hadn't been said perhaps, something that goes against what was said, then this is very important for you to see this, because this means there is division between the truth and what you would prefer the truth to be. So in summary of this part, as we go into this, watch your reactions, and don't try to do a thing with them. Just watch them and then let them go. You have to let them go, because the next second is a new second and something else is coming to your mind, has it not? So watch your reactions and don't do a thing about it, because when you see a response, any kind of response, an angry one, a confused one, any kind of response, and you don't do anything with it except watch it, you're beginning to end wrong responses. When you see something clearly, this doesn't mean you don't respond. It means you don't respond according to your conditioning, all these 20, 30, or 50 years that society and your parents and your friends have put into your mind as the kind of a person you should be. You should be successful, for example. Or, far more terrifying than that you should always be young, maybe. You see? So, watch your responses as we go into some very basic principles of life. If this excites you, what we're going to say, then that is a proper response, because it is true. You have to prove it for yourself. I can't prove it for you, but you can prove it for yourself. Okay? There is a way to get up in the morning and go through your entire day and your entire evening until the next morning, 24 hours, without being disturbed, upset by anything whatsoever. Again, this is not philosophy. We're not here to talk words and to even give light-hearted encouragements. This happens to be a fact. We're going to find out. We have to work for many, many years on this. But we're going to take some basic principles and find out how we can do this. We covered some of them a minute ago. May I ask you a question? Answer it to yourself, not to me. Just quietly, all by yourself, because this is where you live 99% of your life. Is there something wrong with your life as it is right now, as you're sitting here? We know there is, don't we? There are a lot of things wrong. Not necessarily connected with our career or our finances or our family or our marriage, but with a secret life that the wife or husband doesn't really know about. Because you know very well you can't talk to him or her about it. So if there is something wrong, we'll find out how to start ending this, regardless of the position you are in, regardless of your associations, whether you're rich or poor. It starts by seeing, listen to this. It starts by seeing, even with shock, the dreadful inner state in which we live. I don't mean you have great emotional upheavals every day. I mean in little things. When you go to work tomorrow morning, try sometime to observe your state of mind as you walk into the office, if you work in an office, or wherever you work. Try to observe the first words you say to the first person you meet. Say good morning, or whatever you say, and throw your attention back on your state of mind when you said good morning. Now, you've done this all your life without ever noticing it, haven't you? You've done this mechanically without noticing it. You're going to start changing things. And the more shocked you are, by the way, the better for you. Because without this surprise, this dismay of seeing that we're much worse off than we thought we are. Now, this isn't negative, this is positive. See? So you say good morning to the lady or the man you always say good morning to. And at the same time, you observe yourself. You might be quite surprised at what you see that you've never ever noticed in all these years before. But now you're working. You're your own doctor. You will see, maybe. Now you have to find your own examples. You find out for yourself what you see. Maybe you're a bit nervous at saying hello to this person. Maybe you had a little tiff the day before, and maybe you even feel guilty about it, but of course you don't say anything because most of it is unconscious. You have to find your own examples on this. What we're trying to get at is this. The average person goes through his day without the slightest awareness of the internal nervousness, confusion, despair, you want to call it unhappiness in some of it. Unless we can begin to see that this is the way we have lived all our lives, while all the time putting on an exterior and very skilled stage performance, you know what I mean, of being happy, of being free, of being content. If this is what we want, then we can have it. But then we will go to bed with the nightmares, and we'll be anxious over everything. We're not here for that purpose. We're not here to cover anything up. And we're all in the same boat, so that no one is better or worse than anyone else. So there's no comparisons here. We can begin to go through the first stage of the shock of seeing our actual condition. We are on the first step to correction from it. You know, what a shame that we overlook the simple medicines, perhaps the simplest medicine of all for inner health, for not paying the price anymore, is a dreadful honesty with ourselves so that we see this state. By the way, I will interrupt myself. Don't expect anyone else to want this. And if you tell them about this, they will say they're already doing it or have done it for years or something like that. And yet you know by watching them that they have all kinds of problems, right? A very dreadful self-honesty with our actual state. Then, see, instead of things getting easier, when you see this, they get rougher. Do you understand why? if I'm playing a stage performance in front of my family, down at work, in front of the people I have over at parties all the time, of the happy individual, the up-and-coming young executive, or the young mother with 3 lovely children and all that. If I play this role long enough in front of you, I'll begin to believe it myself. And it is enormously difficult, it'll be enormously difficult for anyone to tell me that it's all a stage performance. Because I will fear that this person telling me that is, 1, insulting me, trying to take away my happiness, talking nonsense, and on and on. And I will become, at least secretly, afraid of that person who has told me the truth, that I have been playing a role all my life. So it's important for us, at whatever stage or age we are at, to start right now to melt the ice. Because the longer we go, obviously, the longer it is to start to break it down, because we resist. And we will now see why this resistance, all right, I don't have to tell you this. You tell some of your friends, neighbors, relatives, the smallest little self-correction about themselves, and what is their reaction? You know better than to even say it in the first place, and you shouldn't. The only people who can be, quote marks, insulted, end quote marks, is people who are working on themselves, who want out of the trap. You must never help people who don't want it. The New Testament says, don't cast your pearls before swine. So as I examine myself and see that I'm in this state, and I say something like this, and I say it emotionally, I say it with feeling. You must have feeling in it. Don't say it with your intellect. You won't believe it. You won't be doing it. So I am sick and tired of playing the stage performance all day long, and suffering from it, and being nervous, and wondering whether I'm going to remember my lines or not. The lines that will impress people or get them to believe that my role is real. I know it isn't. But by playing the role, I hope that you will confirm it in some way in me, which you will never do, really. You're too busy playing your roles, and I'm playing mine. So by bearing the shock of seeing myself as I am, not once a week, but every second, even you're sitting here now, already, all of you have been having all kinds of reactions to what has been said, haven't you? To some degree, right? So with an honesty that really hurts, I look at myself and I say, the reason I made that emphatic gesture is because that's a part of my stage performance. Or the reason I smiled at you is because I did it mechanically and automatically because I've been smiling all my life and I didn't really feel it. I didn't even feel a smile, which does not mean that you go around frowning. At a certain point in this very difficult self-investigation, how should we put it? I will begin to feel something that I have never felt before, entirely different, entirely new. I will know it, and I can't tell you about it because you have to, if you have done it, then you will know, and we won't have to tell each other. You will feel a change in yourself that no other human being on earth needs to know about because you are becoming your own confirmation. Now what does this feel? Let's see what it is. Having been tired of falsehood and dropped it even when it pains me to drop it, because I don't know what's on the other side of falsehood. And don't imagine what's over there. You just drop it and find out what's over there and you'll see. This feeling really cannot be described, but it is like going down the highway here, you lost your map, or someone gave you a false map, hundreds of people gave you false maps, or they're out of date, and you suddenly see a right sign, you turn, right turn, let's say, and you see what is already really inside of you. It isn't anything out there. It isn't getting excited over a teacher or over a book. But it's getting excited. You get excited because you see something in yourself. And it's very silent and very powerful. When you get to this stage, a certain stage, there'll be nothing on earth that will ever permit you to go back to those old ways. Very few people are going to go with you. I said that before, so get that out of the way. You have to, look, if you're going to live your life, you have to get rid of your accumulations of illusions. I have to get rid of mine, of falsehood, which we have taken as truth all our life, of social myths as to what you need to get in order to feel secure. This takes courage. But if you will take as much as you have, even if it's just a little, and run right out to the end of the plank, and it's dark out there, right? You know what I'm talking about. Every one of you know exactly what I'm talking about. And you go out the end of the plank, and it's real dark out there, and you're terrified. I'll tell you what to do. I'm not being dramatic. I'm giving you an illustration, but I'm not being dramatic. When you get out there in the darkness and the end of the plank, jump. Just jump. You understand? I'm sure you do. There's something in you that gets. When you jump, if you jump in that direction, you've cut yourself off from everything back there. From false personality, from false values, from all the nonsense you hear in the news and from people who are supposed to know the answers. You've cut yourself off. Now you've jumped off and you're in this darkness out there and you don't know who you are. I said it was frightening, but you have to do it. You jump off and you're in the dark. And you know what happens next? You think you're free. You think you're going to be happy. Right ahead of you, there's a little light, all right, and then it disappears, and there's another light and another darkness. And you do the same thing. And you do this all day long. Now, what's the man talking about? Here's what we're talking about. Be very practical about this, because all of you are in association with other human beings at work, socially, wherever, in the home. I'll give you something very practical to do. The next time you're in association with someone, and something comes up, anything, and you begin to feel anger or resentment, you know where you are? You're right out on the end of this plank with the darkness out there. Now, hang on, we'll get it. You want to get angry because this person, whatever it was, wife, husband, boss, whoever, anyone, has aroused in you a feeling of anger, hostility, resentment, a negative emotion. What are you going to do? What do most people do? I will tell you. They destroy themselves. Not just once, 10 times a day, by getting angry. We'll find out sometime, maybe later if we have time, why you get angry. But you get angry. Now when you get angry about anything, no exceptions, that means that you went out to the end of the plank and were so afraid that you turned around and ran back to where you said you were safe, to where you thought you were safe. Because in anger, that's excitement. You're fighting. You feel as if you're defending yourself. You feel safer. You're not. You're destroying yourself. But you think this. So the next time you get in a position where you have to watch. If you don't watch, it'll overcome you before you know it. That's why you have to watch every second. I can start to feel it. That person did a bad thing to me 5 years ago, and you look at him and already you're aroused. He says the wrong word, bang, you're done. When you feel it arising, what do? By seeing that you're about to get angry, this is too much to explain right now because it diverges into several things to do, but we'll take one of them. You say, instead of giving way to the anger, I'm going to stand out here and look back at myself and observe it and don't do a single thing about it. Eat it fail and get angry, and you walk away, you remember, I said that I wasn't going to get angry. I don't mean suppress it. Suppression is dishonesty. And you just build it up and you seem to blow it. If you fail, an hour later, or 10 minutes later, whatever, you say, I didn't simply stand aside, which it is possible to do, and let my awareness, consciousness, my understanding end the anger, but I gave way to it because I'm still a mechanical machine. Okay, I failed this time. Tomorrow, the same thing is going to happen. You know it is. You have to be honest. You have to tell yourself how many times you've been angry in the last week, month. So, tomorrow, next week, you run into the same situation again, and you're out on the end of this plane. The way to jump into the darkness is to stand aside and watch yourself get angry without doing anything else but watch yourself. Now, I'll tell you what will happen. If you will do this 10 times, 50 times, 100 times, this very interesting thing will happen. Instead of being a machine, which when the button is pushed, you or I flare up, we're able to stop pushing the button because, listen, now this is very important, because instead of a mechanical reaction to the anger, which destroys us, right? You agree on that? The anger will destroy you? All right. Instead of falling into mechanical anger, which you and I have been doing all our lives, a third factor comes into being, a higher factor, which you can give several names, and we're just going to simplify it. We can't take too much time with it, but you can call it consciousness, understanding, truth in operation. It makes no difference what you call it. But this is not mechanical thinking, not mechanical emotions anymore. When you stand aside, listen, when you stand aside and look back at your mounting anger, even if you do it for 1 second, may I tell you what we are at that 1 second? We are sane. Mindfulness, emotions are powerful, aren't they? They want to roll on all the time. But I have said that I'm not going to pay the price anymore. I'm not going to be my own punishment anymore. That's out. So I do this the next time. I'm taking anger as an example, but you can use any negative emotion. Take guilt if you want, which rules most people. Only sometimes we'll talk about guilt. So I stand back, and I catch it just a little, but it gets away from me. And for the next several times, it gets away from me. But at a certain point, I'll begin to see that there is something in me that is not mechanical anger, that is not mechanical thought. And by awakening to this, you have to do this for yourself. You understand, in order to understand it, you will see that you are quite able to break this pattern, this habit, whatever it is, so that you are awake to it before it even begins to take you over. Then when you go out in the world, this is, again, not philosophy, this is not sweet talk. When you go out into the world or into your home, and you run into a person who is not pleasant, or thoughtless, or whatever, which you do all day long, is unavoidable. Is that right? He has his problem. Fine, you're not going to change him. But you are no longer going to go out into this world and let this man who overcharged you, or that very sharp waitress, or whatever it might be, you are not going to be his slave, as most people are. Most human beings, the vast majority of human beings, are the slaves of the man next door, or the man down at work. Because this other person's changing facial expression, or tone of voice, or action tells him how to feel. So we become their slave. Do you like the slave of anyone else? Have you followed this so far? You see what it requires Let's take one word instead of going too far. Let's take one word and see what we have. And that is the word attention. Now, I will give you a lesson in attention right now. We've had this before. Here it is again. What is your physical position right now? Just your physical position, sitting in the chair or on the couch. What is the expression on your face right now? You see? See what you did? Just a little bit. It's a little thing, of course. But you, for a moment, threw your attention back on yourself to be aware of yourself, physically, for the moment. Begin to put your attention every second, as we're sitting here, afterward, when you go to work tomorrow, whatever, on the state of your mind. It is by knowing the state of mind and of the emotions that we change them. I'll end this now and we'll open it up to a general discussion. By looking at myself at the start, my first experience is far from being a pleasant one. Because I've lived all my life in dream pictures about what a nice human being I am, that I never lose my temper, for example, that I'm a faithful this or that, or whatever. And I have all these lovely ideas about myself. But at the same time, I have lived a haunted life. And somehow, I suspect that this haunting really isn't out there. Really isn't what you did to me 10 years ago, or how society treats me. I really suspect that the haunting is up here. So, I begin to work in the right place. I give my attention to my own mind and to my own feelings. This constant attention, looking, without getting angry over what I see in myself, without feeling guilty over it. Because when you feel guilty, you have simply created another false you in there. Essentially, you're neither guilty nor innocent. When you understand this, you're above the labels of guilt or innocent, and this is innocence with a capital I. After going through a period of out at the end of this plank and in the dark, and then another one, and then another one, and then another one, I will get a definite feeling of a totally new kind of human being inside of me. You know what you'll do? You'll keep it to yourself for the most part. Not in dream pictures of being a spiritual person or anything like that, because that's just another self-deception. But something that is very real. And you will see, if I may put it this way, instead of getting angry 5 times a week, you get angry 4 times a week, and then maybe 3 times a week, because you're beginning to put an end to the tyranny from which we have suffered all our lives, and didn't even know we were suffering from it because we loved our suffering. It made us feel excited. But we're all through. This is the end. You will find yourself a changed human being, a different human being. And you'll be working all your life and just purifying the inner self more and more and more. And no one and nothing will ever take you away from it again. Not because you become hardened in some superstition or some religion or some belief, but because you've melted the hardening that you have taken onto yourself from both the outside world and from yourself, from your own desire for that. And when we're completely melted down, we are free. And you'll be quite amazed at what has happened to you. You'll say it was, you give a sigh and you say it was long and hard work, but from the very beginning I knew that I could do nothing else but this. And you'll be a truly, truly happy human being, not one pretending to be happy. You'll be your own commander. All right. Do we have comments, questions? We can discuss it now. Anything that we've talked about that you might want to go into? Anyone?
Well, suppose you find yourself becoming very angry. And you stop right in the middle of your anger. And you stand up and you see yourself.
Yes.
Then what takes place?
You're beginning the process of interrupting mechanical thought and mechanical emotion. Mechanicalness is very persistent. It doesn't want to stop. So you do it once, fine. But this is the beginning. You understand? Mm-hmm. We had the illustration very recently about, if you picture in your mind a wheel here. And if you give the wheel a spin, it'll turn, will it not? If you give it another whack, it'll keep spinning, keep spinning. What happens if you cease to spin the wheel? It'll slow down and stop by itself. Every time we permit a mechanical emotion of any kind to go on without interrupting it, it keeps it going. What you're beginning to do, to use the illustration, is put your hand out a little bit and slow it down. Every time you do this, you won't succeed the first time, you won't succeed the first 50 times. But you do it. And pretty soon, you see, you have to sense this, you have to see it, and you will. If you don't want out, then none of this has any meaning. But if you want out, then it has tremendous meaning. You do it. You find out for yourself what happens when you are in any negative emotion and you don't like being a slave anymore. Do it. Even if you fail 1,000 times, you just do it again. Because this is success to try. And we have to try. We have to make an effort.
But I will experience two angers. I will experience the anger that this other person is giving me. And when I stop and look back, I will become angry with myself because I allowed this. Now, there's two conflicts.
All right. Do you know why you become angry at yourself? Shall I tell you why?
Sure.
You become angry because an idea you have about yourself of being an angry person has been punctured. Just shift it away from you so it doesn't sound, personal.
I'm not taking it on the personal thing.
Yeah. If I have an image of myself, picture of being a very pleasant person, never gets mad, and you make me angry at something you say, and I get angry, because you're punching the picture, I get angry and guilty, and I feel ashamed because you have punctured an illusion. But if I can see that it was a phony illusion, and I'm not really nice at all, I was pretending to be nice. And this keeps me unnice. Pretense. See? A mask. It's a mask, and it's very painful stuck on there.
I was angry because it was penetrating.
Yes.
I found this out.
Yes. You want to use the oldest saying of all, it's the truth that hurts? Sure it is. Of course it is. This is part of your study. Excuse me, go ahead.
But, for instance, you've been going along and you've been able to see that when you've gotten angry, you figure, no, it's not for me. You just walk away from it. In many ways. And then you find someone that'll be, well, at you. It seems like it's a steady pounding, and you say, well, look, let's stop it. No, we're not going to stop it. They're going to keep right on. What do you do then? Because he knows it. No, it isn't that. I have a daughter.
Yes,
she's a cutie. 16 years old. She's a doll.
Okay.
And she has a bad habit. It seems like she wants to see if she can push me right up against that wall and I'm going to come back fighting. And I keep going along saying, well, she's a good girl, don't get me wrong. She's a very good girl. But I think she enjoys it. She has a big game of it, I'll say, well, goodness sake, leave me alone. Mother, I'm not doing nothing. To her, she seems to enjoy herself doing this. What is this?
Let me ask you, does this upset you?
Well, I go along and I laugh and laugh, and then every so often I can't laugh no more. And I just go, oh, and I put my lid. Then she gets it. And then we go into it for a while. See, I go along for a while, and then she'll say, well, gee, Mother, I didn't realize. I said, but Nina, you just can't keep hounding someone like that. She has a habit, it seems like with everyone. And I'm trying to find out what it is with her. Whether it's me.
May I ask you a question?
Yes.
Why do you permit your daughter to upset you?
I don't want to. Understand me?
Pardon?
I don't want to. I go along. Sometimes I think, well, maybe what I should do is just pull my hand back and let her have it the first time. And it'll stop her right there and then. But it seems like, of course, ever since she was born. The day she was born, it was a case of, when I wanted to put her diaper on, I'd fight with her. Her legs would go like this. My husband would walk up and he'd say, I know what problem you have. Look at her. And she would. She lay there so quietly. We never said a word to each other. What was it?
Who would like to contribute to that?
I really don't know. I mean, there was attention.
Pardon?
I think she wants the attention.
True.
No, now wait a minute. Let me explain to you. Now, how can I explain this? I dreamed of a little girl. Fine. We got this little bundle of joy, and she was a doll. Fine. So we loved her, and the first day I brought her home, I don't know. Here I am, all this food. I got my little bundle here, and she's so little and tiny, and then I go ahead and I go to change the diaper, and her legs are going like this. And my mother walks up, and she says, "Oh, Nina. Oh, Grandma's so old, poor kid." And she lays there real quietly. She's only a week old. She lays there real quietly. My mother touches her dresses and all. Mind you, now we've got a lot of love between us. Don't ever kid yourself. It's been a case we've always had a great contact. To me, it seemed like it, because I spent a lot of time with her. I played with her, I talked to her, we sang together, we do this, mommy, mommy, mommy. But she has this funny thing of trying to, I don't know what it is.
Okay, may I ask you? I'll give you some work to do. You connect this situation that you had just mentioned with what we have discussed earlier and tell me how this situation can be changed. Can you do that? Would you like to do that? How something we discussed connects very much with what you were talking about.
Now, what do you think?
You say you don't understand it.
I really don't. I'm trying
Where does self-understanding start?
Where does what?
Self-understanding start.
I don't know.
It starts with yourself, does it not?
Yes.
So all these things we've talked about, when I was talking for 30, 40 minutes, can be applied to that if you will do it. But you have to do it. Instead of putting your attention on your daughter, put it on yourself and your own reactions to her, so that you understand your reactions. You're not going to change your daughter necessarily. You might in certain ways, through certain external disciplines. But if you are upset by it, who has the problem? See, this is what we're getting at. If I have a problem, I have a problem, not my daughter or my son.
Yeah. Well, now the thing is, if it's another person, if it's a person that's out of the house, I just don't have nothing to do with them. I walk away from them. I walk away, I feel this way. I don't have to live with that person. And I won't allow them to get me. And I might start feeling anger, and I think, that's foolishness. It's not going to do me any good. All I know is I'm going to get sick, so I walk away. But see, when you're in a house with someone, is there ever anything that there's a personality clash at any time?
When you are right within yourself, there is no such thing as a personality clash. Now you think about that. Yes.
In other words, if I react with anger, to an insult or something like that, I always blame the other person.
Most people.
I take myself as nothing being wrong with me.
That's right.
And I keep myself as a slave by making the other person make me how to feel.
Right? Right.
Oh, no.
Doesn't it seem like she's a slave to her daughter?
No, that's the answer.
Doesn't it seem like she's a slave to her daughter?
Yes.
Like most parents are.
Everybody's a slave, as we said. Everyone's a slave to everyone else.
The daughter realizes that she gets a reaction.
Sure. She gets a kick out of that.
This is a way of her getting rid of her frustration by throwing it over to you. Seems to me. I mean, I'm not the expert.
No, that's correct. She gets rewarded.
No, I've got the answer now.
Okay.
It's going to be a long, hard fight.
With yourself, not with your daughter.
With myself.
Right.
And I feel that eventually, if I can overcome this with myself, my daughter won't get any joy out of anything, so she'll quit.
You know the old saying, if you stop throwing bones out to the roving dogs, they'll stop coming around. And if we stop feeding the neurosis of other people, not necessarily your daughter, but anybody, you stop rewarding them, they're not going to do it anymore. They're not getting a kick. It doesn't mean that they're going to change. It means they'll go to someone else and get their kicks from them, maybe. But you, meanwhile, has begun to do right by ceasing to feed them wrongly. You know, anger is a very important false food to people. By getting angry, I get a very fiery feeling. I feel alive. I feel important. Before this tape runs out, have the courage to stop loving anger. Don't love it. And if you are angry all the time, it is because you love it. And we will, in a minute, find out why we love it. We'll go into that a little bit. It's important. If you had a magic pill you could give to people, which if they swallowed it would take away their anger and their guilt and their anguish, they would refuse to take it. You think not? They would absolutely refuse to take it. You see why? We've said it many times. As long as I am suffering, as long as I feel guilty, as long as I have resentment for you, I feel like somebody. If you take away all this hatred I have and this secret violence in me, all this distress, if you take it away from me, I'm out on the end of the plank again, because I won't know who I am if I jump off and leave it behind me. So to a lost human being, to use that term, anger, violence, becomes very important to their false way of living, and they just simply won't give it up. You'll never get most of the people you know to give up their anger. You see how you yourself resist giving it up. You look and see how much pleasure you get out of being mad. Just look at it. Now, it is a poisonous pleasure, obviously. And why on earth don't we give it up? Because we're afraid we don't know who we are. Because this anger has become part of my identity. Take a person who's in an executive position, and he has great authority over other people. And he can yell at people and order them around and all that. And he can get angry at them because he has the authority to do so. He gets a great thrill out of having this authority, and this is who he is. And if you take it away from him, he feels as if he will be lost and not know who he is, and he will say, if you take this away from me, I will die. Our purpose here is to die to falsehood, so that we can be truly alive and know it, instead of living in a pseudo-happiness of having power and authority over other people. You find someone in your life that you have some kind of authority over, power over, in any way, even in a family relationship. And you watch your behavior toward them. And if you find yourself behaving cruelly, unkindly, I dare you to give it up. I don't mean give up common sense and wisdom and telling your child not to run out in the street and things like that. I'm telling you to have the courage to give up the egotism and the horror of having power over any other human being on earth, so that you have nothing and that you are nothing. You try it and see what happens inside of you when you say, I'm going to give up being unkind. You watch. And if you watch very carefully, you'll be on the right track. You won't be destroying yourself every day, and you won't be destroying that other person. And you remember, as we said before, you will begin to have a conscience. To have a conscience, you must first know what it means to have a conscience. As long as you need to be boss of someone, you can't have a conscience. Take your choice, either one. Conscience and freedom are the same thing. All right, somebody?
I want to remark about that.
Yes.
If you allow this girl to continue, then you're doing her harm, and you'll be a slave to her for the rest of your life. Because I know my two daughters, I've raised them, and I realize that I'm a slave to them. And
though they're in the class and everything, they still won't let me go. I almost didn't come to the class because since I realized that they're both sick, they're always asking me to come and help them, and I resent that very much.
Yes.
And I didn't realize until I started this that I wanted to get rid, I wanted to put them back on myself. And I don't think they're even because it's very difficult for them. I don't think they want to do it.
Yes.
They don't want to use me. But you see, I have allowed it because I took all responsibility for it. And I do. And today, I have real problems. Well, and even though they're both studying this, and they're trying very hard, it's very difficult.
A certain point a little bit. Now, don't leap to conclusions. Hear this out. Very important. When I have no problem at all with myself, now listen. Now listen. When I have no problem whatsoever with myself, now don't talk. I have no problem whatsoever with any other human being on earth. When I have worked on myself hard enough and have got rid of 1,000 wrong things inside of me, including a Savior image, then I can look, if I am truly free of myself, I can look at my son who has a problem, my husband who is an alcoholic, my daughter who has a problem, my mother or father who have always had problems. Even now that they're 75 years old, they have just as many as they always had, right? When I don't have a Savior complex based on other false ideas about myself, such as I'm a very wise human being who could just solve the world's problems if they would only let me. I can't even solve my own, and I go around preaching sermons, writing books, and telling other people how to live. Now, I've never looked to see that I am a horror, a nightmare in myself. Now listen. If I have a problem with you, I have a problem with me. If I have a problem with you, I am attached to you, and I'm attached in the wrong way. We need about 10 hours, but we don't have the time. One, I am using you, whom I say I love. I'm using you for my security because I'm insecure, and when I'm 80 years old, I want you to come around and visit me, otherwise I'll be lonely. I'm using you one of a dozen ways. Even using you to get an ego thrill out of fighting with you. If I didn't have someone to fight with, I wouldn't know what to do. I'd go mad. Boy, do I have a problem. But as was said a minute ago, the last thing I want to do, the last thing, is to look and see what a problem I am to myself. It's always the other man, isn't it? And even if I go and hear this somewhere, well, that man said that the problem is always in me. I really don't accept it. I pretend to say it because it sounds good in public. But I've never really looked at myself to where I'm shocked to see how I blab endlessly, how I accuse other people, how great a problem I am to myself. When I worked on myself, you can never be a problem. How? If you want to go out and behave like an idiot, go out and behave like an idiot. You have a problem, and God didn't put me here on earth to solve your problem. And I don't have a false Savior complex. I'm going to save you. If I am sick, and I want to help you get well, for heaven's sake, I have to get well. I can't be the patient in the hospital bed next to you and tell you how to get well. I'm deceiving myself, and I'm getting sicker every day. You understand, don't you? Look, in self-deception, each one of you, all of us, every one of us, in self-lying, stop lying. If you want out. If you don't, then you can lie. That's up to you. It's your life. Question, you come back to it. Do you want out? Don't lie and say you do if you don't. Because if you say you don't and really mean it, that will be a beginning, because there's something in you way down that really wants it. But you must not lie and say that you don't. You know, it's a wonderful feeling of relief, a tremendous feeling to know that you are not don't quote the Bible to me, please. You are not your brother's keeper. Your brother is his own keeper. When you are healthy, you'll know how to behave toward your brother. And you won't spread neurosis and call it love. See? For heaven's sake, let's look at ourselves as we are. Right here, right now. You should be working hard on it, so that the health can start flowing instead of increasing the neurosis. Don't love guilt either. Yes?
You said that when we have any kind of problem, when anger, hurt feelings, resentment, whatever, that's feeding something within ourselves that we want, right?
Would you say that again, please?
When we have these negative feelings,
okay,
it's feeding something within us that we want,
mm-hmm.
that needs working on, right?
Okay, go ahead. I didn't follow that quite. I'm sorry. You mean if you feel a negative emotion?
Like anger.
Okay.
In a sense, we enjoy it.
Okay. And you enjoy it, yes?
No, it doesn't mean that we enjoy it, right? I'm just making a statement. We must enjoy it. Or we wouldn't have made it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, that's quite true. Yes, you do indeed enjoy it. You love it.
All right, so the point then is to work upon yourself when you don't feel those emotions. Let someone else work on themselves, but you work on yourself when you don't feel that emotion. And once you get there then, the situation is healed because you healed yourself. So there's really no necessity to move on, say to another job or another situation, because you either face it and heal it within yourself, and if you've done that, then it doesn't bother you anymore.
Right.
So if you stay right where you are and face it, you've got that you're proving done right there.
Right. If I have a problem in me against my boss, who may indeed be a cruel man, he may be very unkind or overbearing or whatever he may be. We're not talking about that. But I have the problem of being afraid of him, being angry at him. Dear sir, you do what you want with your life. If you want to dominate me down at work, or if you want to fire me, that's up to you. I am not going to let you make me miserable. This is not defeat. This is winning. And there's so much to go into, very briefly. You're not going to change the mechanical and hostile behavior of anyone out there. Never. I don't care how many peace leagues you have or united this or that. You're going to continue to have war. Mechanical man is not going to change. We're here to try to cease being mechanical men. You see, back to your original point. Yes, I do indeed love this anger, because if you have fired me, I don't know where to turn. I'm distressed, I'm angry, and I have to tell my wife that I've been laid off, and we just bought a new refrigerator on time, which I probably didn't need. My only, quote, protection is to blow up and to blab about my problems to the first man I meet, and the second and the third one. What if I had the courage and had been on to some of this a little bit, and I said, now, you fired me. Instead of falling into, remember earlier we said about mechanical emotions, I'm going to stand back and for the first time in my life, I'm going to respond according to my true self-interest. See? That will give me a little bit of a right kind of shock. Because no man, as we've said before, consciously injures himself. It's because I'm caught in this mechanical pattern of blowing up every time something goes wrong. I no longer value anger as response because I see it has no value. You can't just say this and agree with me. You have to do it. We're here now and we're working. Your real work comes tomorrow and Monday. When you meet these things and you're not sitting among friends here who are all agreeing that we want to work on ourselves. You're thrown to the wolves out there. So this is where you have to work on. Loving these inner negativities is nothing more than a false value which has taken us over all these years. And we're not going to put up with it anymore. Back again to what was requested. As you work on yourself and clear yourself, you will see this whole social system as it actually is, which is really a madhouse, where human beings divide themselves into Group A and Group B. Just look at it. Group A and Group B. What do you want? Religious, political, social? Group A says they are right. Group B says we are right. And they fight and they kill each other in the name of God and righteousness. It's not for us anymore. We may have been at one time. It's not for us. And even when the boss fires me or whatever he does, I am not going to listen. This is magic. I'm not going to take an opposite to him. I'm going to be above these opposites. He does something on the mechanical level in anger. Like attracts like. He gets angry. Already I'm afraid. I get angry, right? So it always is. This is the way everybody lives and destroys each other. We're going to be above the anger by doing all these little things we've been talking about.
I just, for the first time, thoroughly enjoy your expression mechanic. I mean, the bell.
You begin to understand it a little better.
Your word mechanic was beautiful.
Yes. Well, you see it. You see it.
So your last portion of that was that if you, rather than leave that or go to something else, that you stay with it. Yeah, maybe because if you needed that lesson, and they're still needing that lesson, you will like and attract, right? You're going to attract another situation to still learn. And so you just keep packing it with you until you learn.
That's true, yeah. You know, it's a beautiful thing when we keep running into wrong situations and the pain becomes unbearable. Be very grateful when you get in a situation where the pain becomes unbearable, if you are working. Because the minute a tremendous pain meets a grain of truth, this grain of truth is 1,000 times more powerful than this overpowering rage you have of what society did to you. You can't play around. You have to strike out hard. Don't play around with this. You'll never get anywhere. Don't talk about it. Don't talk about it as if it's philosophy. It isn't.
Just do it.
Pardon?
Just do it.
Do it. Yes, yes. Just do it. Do the hard thing. And what's always the hardest thing? To see myself as I am, instead of as I've pretended I am in front of you and in front of myself. And every time you see through a mask, there's a lot of pain in taking the thing off because it's been stuck there with this glue of 50 years. Anyway, as we said before, when you take it off, surprise, there's another one underneath.
Well, tell me, what is something, say someone makes you angry, I mean, they lash out at you for something that maybe you really are almost in it, what you say, you get the blame on you.
All right.
Then what do? You just sort of kind of stand back and just think, well, play dumb, as they say, or whatever it would be. I don't understand this.
I know. All right, let's take a big leap. Let's take a real big leap.
Yeah.
You have to listen. Say if something happens, okay, an unhappy situation. As long as I react on the level of I'm sunk. All mechanical thought, and all thought is mechanical, comes from the past. All the mind, operating in a certain way, is a tape recorder. And it can only play what has been recorded there in the last 10, 20, 30 years. It will simply repeat it. So, when a person gets angry in the morning, you know very well he's going to get angry at noon and in the afternoon and at night, because this is his whole pattern. Almost always hidden. We don't show our anger. We smile. We pretend we like you. We love you. As long as I react on the level of thought, I cannot destroy the pattern, the mechanicalness. Thought has its place. You're thinking to cook your dinner tomorrow night. This is perhaps the most important thing we're going to cover tonight. There is a way of thinking. We have trouble with words. You understand? I have to use words to convey this. There is a way of thinking which is not this kind of mechanical thought. It does not have any memory to it whatsoever, because it is not connected with time of 5 minutes ago or 50 years ago. Now, we can call this, for convenience, a state, let's call it a state of awareness, a state of consciousness. When a challenge comes up down at the office and in the home, and you have worked on yourself, and this person behaves admittedly very foolish, very childish, very cruel perhaps. We're not saying that they don't behave cruelly. Of course they do. It's a cruel word. Really. They behave cruelly towards you, but you have worked so that you are no longer a slave of yourself. You're free of yourself, of your old nature. Been born again. Do you want to use a religious term? So you respond to this regardless of what it is, regardless of how it takes all your money and all your pride and all your vanity and all your so-called love. I loved my wife for 20 years and she left for another man. You didn't love her at all. And she didn't love you either. Instead of reacting with mechanical thought, you have learned that there is another way to respond, which we will call awareness, consciousness. Which means you see the thing happening. Certainly it is happening to you, but it is not happening to you. Why? Because you no longer exist as a labeled, conditioned, accumulated self. This is terribly important to see. You're not there anymore. Can you conceive this at all? I'm going to go on, but can you conceive this? You will. If you're thinking about it now, it's a start, but you have to do more than that. When you have abandoned all your self-labels, there is no such thing as anyone treating you respectfully, kindly, with love. Nobody owes you a thing. If anybody owes you anything, I feel very sorry for you. You're in misery, and you're going to stay in misery. When, quote, you, end quote, has been dissolved in the light of understanding, so that you no longer exist as a labeled self, except for practical purposes. You have a name, don't you? You have to have it for practically. When there is no identity left, and you insult me, who's it going to hit? I'm not here. See? Instead of a hardened ego, for it to hit and to get angry, as it has been doing all this time, and furious, and wanting revenge, and I pity you if you ever take revenge on anyone, even in your thoughts. Instead of being a hardened ego, it has been dissolved. It has evaporated in the light of understanding, of studying these things, of seeing your true nature. And your true nature has no flattery about it. It has no images. There is nothing there. Which, when you see this, is not frightening, as you may now suppose, because you've leaped off the end of that plank into the darkness so many times, You've destroyed it. A little kid going home, 10 years old, coming home from a party at night, is frightened of the dark. He grows up, 20, 30, now he's no longer afraid of the dark. This is what is the matter with us. We're afraid of the dark. Psychological darkness. So when you don't exist psychologically anymore, it does not mean you cease to exist. When there's no ego self there, you become immune to anything from the outer world because it was never out there anyway. It was your own response. You are your own anger, for heaven's sake. How can you make me mad? You can't make me mad. I make me mad. Right? You work on this idea of seeing that we've lived from a false, hardened ego self, which always wants to get revenge, which always resents what the other person has done to us. See that it's there, and work on these processes we've talked about to end them, which is simply to see them clearly. When you see a bottle of poison and you know it's poison, you push it away. You don't say, should I take it or shouldn't? You throw it out. When we see the damage of this ego self, this hardened self, with all its cruelty and its viciousness and its lies, and when we see that we have been poisoning ourselves all our life, we don't do it anymore. No more. Anyone?
Yeah.
Yes.
But he doesn't want to give up.
No.
At first, he'll fight back.
It'll fight for years.
Yeah.
Fight for years.
But you get to see it that it's so. I like my anger.
To repeat, the pain has to get too bad. You know, you have to, such despair, not the despair that says, I'm going to give up or I'm going to find an escape somewhere, but the despair that says, I honestly, for heaven's sake, don't know what to do next. When you don't know what to do next and stay right there, without moving from there, then this new element will come in. But as long as you try to escape with another brand of mechanical thought, you're not escaping at all. You're taking it with you. How can you escape from yourself? You have to fight. But this is a different kind of fighting. There's no anger involved. There's simply an intense wish to find out what in heaven's name my life here on earth is all about. And you can't find out. But you can't deceive yourself. Don't people enjoy being a martyr? Martyr, yes. Oh yes, that's wonderful. Martyrs. Don't be a martyr. To anyone. To any other human being. Don't sacrifice yourself to anyone. You're very foolish if you sacrifice yourself. You're sacrificing yourself for an image of being a good person. And that is all. And if I have an image of being a good person, I am not a good person. I simply have an image of it. And watch how quickly I change when you don't give me what I want. Then am I a good person? See?
Then how would a person know whether he, well, I guess you would know if you're going along with it. I guess your feelings would be different. When you really have overcome some of this, at least some of it,
All right.
because I eventually expect to overcome something,
Okay.
and there should be something that you're feeling. Whether it could very easily be that you could be fooling yourself, right?
Yes, self-deception in this work is very, very common. You can come to a group like this and talk about self-observation and consciousness and all that, and deceive yourself into thinking you're changing and you're not. This is why you have to be able to take it as much as you can take. You know, we're very gentle in these groups, very gentle. And any time you want to grow faster, tell me, and we'll get rougher. and you'll grow faster. If you take it on understanding instead of on insult, the more quote insult end quote you can take, the faster you'll grow.
How about an insulting one tomorrow?
Pardon?
How about a real insulting one tomorrow?
Yeah.
Meeting.
We might.
I mean, really.
As long as the motzi.
I agree.
Pardon?
Very good point.
Yeah. All right. Watch yourself so that you may see insults that you don't see today. Certain resistance. Call it resistance, for one. You resist something that is said, you have to see it.
This concludes the lecture by Mr. Howard.